Welcome to today's Explainer. We are about to go on an absolutely incredible journey. We're going to completely trace the architecture of the internet, starting from literally a single line of code written by a college student way back in 1993, all the way to the multi-trillion-dollar tech monopolies that, well, we all live under today. So get ready, because the way our digital world is structured right now, it is absolutely no accident. I mean, how on earth did one casual email sent in February of 1993 somehow create the massive tech monopolies we deal with today? It's kind of like a giant digital butterfly effect. We're talking about a specific moment where a pragmatic choice made by an undergrad completely altered the internet's architecture. It set off this crazy chain reaction that directly impacts who owns your digital data right this very second.
Think about the inventor of the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee. He actually wanted images to be handled with semantic perfection using an anchor tag. He wanted to allow users to customize exactly how they viewed media. It was super open, but it was pretty clunky. On the other side of the ring, we had Marc Andreessen, who was working on the early Mosaic browser. He decided to just bypass the standards committees entirely and proposed a really simple, hard-coded hack, the IMG tag. Andreessen prioritized immediate visual user utility. He wanted those images right there on the page, no extra clicks required. And because Mosaic was the first to market, his pragmatic, brute force approach completely won out, and that's what gave us the visual web we know today.
So, let's dive into Section 1, the web's original sin.
Now, Andreessen's pragmatic victory absolutely gave us the beautiful visual internet we love today. But it inadvertently bypassed deeper semantic standards. Because the early web was built so incredibly fast, it was left with this massive structural vacuum. Basically, that's the complete absence of a native layer for state, identity, or digital property rights. Early Web 1 protocols, like HTTP and email, were amazing at transferring data perfectly from point A to point B, but they were entirely amnesic. The network literally had no native memory of state, no built-in way to manage your identity, and absolutely zero concept of digital property rights. It knew exactly how to move a file, but it had no idea who actually owned it.
To really grasp why this vacuum matters so much, we've got to remember the original dream. As Chris Dixon points out in his book Read, Write, Own, the internet was designed to be permissionless. No participants would be privileged over others. It was supposed to be this egalitarian paradise. Anyone could build, anyone could connect. But because the network physically couldn't remember who owned what, that egalitarian paradise ended up being incredibly vulnerable.
Which brings us to Section 2, the rise of digital landlords. Fast forward to the mid-2000s, and that vulnerability became painfully obvious. With the open internet completely unable to remember state or property natively, these massive corporate intermediaries stepped right in to fill that structural void. They looked at the web's amnesia and essentially solved it by hosting huge centralized databases. They stepped in and managed our identities for us. They built these high-pressure pipes to fix the broken plumbing. But, here's the catch. By controlling those pipes, they enclose the open web into proprietary walled gardens, and in the process, seize total control of the network's data and all the massive economic upside that came with it.
This completely shifted the paradigm to what researchers actually call digital tenancy. Literally, we went from being free explorers on an open network to digital tenants renting space from centralized gatekeepers. Some of the sources even refer to these platforms as agentic kings, reigning over cloud empires. Think about it. You don't own your social graph, you don't own your audience, you don't even own your data. You are just renting the privilege of accessing them until your digital landlord decides to change the terms of service.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 3, the rent extraction economy. Because hey, if you're a tenant, eventually the rent goes up, right? It is the totally predictable S-curve life cycle of these Web 2 platforms. In the bootstrapping phase, they are your best friend. It's a highly positive sum game. Open APIs, free tools, anything they can do to recruit users and creators to build out their network effects. But the second they hit the top of that S-curve, they enter the extraction phase. The relationship turns entirely zero-sum. The walls go up, users get locked in, and the platform violently shifts to aggressively extracting wealth from the exact same people who built its value in the first place. And just how aggressive are we talking here? Well, consider this. Traditional, real-world payment processors might take a few percent, and we all know the App Store infamously taxes 30%. But the sources reveal that dominant Web 2 social networks capture up to 99% of the advertising revenue generated by their users. 99%. It literally makes a medieval tax collector look generous. It's an absolutely astronomical rent.
The financial gap here is just massive. When you look at Web 1 open protocols like email, they have a 0% take rate. None. Zero. Emerging Web3 protocol networks, they deliberately keep take rates below 1%. But those Web 2 corporate networks are operating at that staggering 99% extraction rate. The financial difference between building on an open protocol versus building in a walled garden is absolutely night and day.
For you, or really any creator trying to build a business online today, this creates a deeply painful situation, what's known as the attention monetization dilemma. When you're trapped inside these high-pressure, rent-extracting pipes, you are forced to make a brutal choice. Do you give your creative content away for free to maximize attention for the platform, or do you charge high fees to your audience and hide behind a paywall? The infrastructure of the web itself works directly against your independence.
But there is hope. Let's move to Section 4, Reclaiming True Digital Ownership.
There's a massive architectural shift happening right now designed to finally fix that original structural vacuum. If we map out the historical arc of the internet, the trajectory is actually super clear. From 1990 to 2005, Web 1 was the read era. It democratized information. Then from 2006 to 2020, Web 2 became the read-write era, democratizing publishing, sure, but vastly centralizing wealth. And now, we are officially entering Web 3, the read-write-own era, where blockchain networks provide that critically missing native layer for state and property, and finally, democratize ownership itself.
This whole shift really boils down to fundamentally changing how trust works online. Web 2 relied entirely on corporate trust. Google's famous old motto, don't be evil. But let's be real, that's just a subjective policy, totally reliant on the flimsy goodwill of whoever happens to be the CEO at the time. Web 3 replaces that with cryptographic trust. Can't be evil. The rules aren't enforced by some corporate board in a closed room. They are enforced by the unyielding mathematical certainty of blockchains and programmatic consensus.
You can really frame this as a battle for the internet's very soul. On one side, you have what's called royalist compute, that centralized cloud empire where you are just a digital tenant renting your logic. And on the flip side, we have Republican compute, a decentralized network of hubs and nodes where you get to be the sovereign pilot of your own machine.
And that is the very essence of sovereign compute. It's all about reclaiming your agentic sovereignty. It means you own the local execution of your data, completely bypassing those centralized cloud landlords entirely. It means finally graduating from being a mere tenant to being a true sovereign pilot, making sure that your digital legacy, your data, and your creative output are as untouchable as your physical front door. Now, I know, fighting back against massive multi-trillion-dollar tech monopolies sounds completely impossible, right? But it actually isn't, thanks to a concept the sources called chopsticks engineering. You don't have to tear down the entire internet to fix it. Instead, engineers are using brilliantly simple surgical tools. For instance, taking the HTTP 402 payment required status code, a native web protocol that literally sat totally dormant for 30 years, and using it as a localized webhook to gracefully bypass Web 2's bloated legal and payment empires. It's just elegant, simple engineering that finally activates the web's original potential.
So I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. As the architecture of the web continues to evolve right in front of us, what role are you going to play? Are you going to succumb to centralized cloud enclosure and just keep renting your digital life from agentic kings? Or will you embrace these new decentralized protocols and restore your sovereignty as a true digital pilot? The infrastructure is finally here. The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time.